Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself. You can call me Febri. I'm from Muhammadiyah University of Surakarta. Let me present my research on implications of education podcast on YouTube and its implication for the formation of Pancasila student values among millennial educated citizens. Introduction. Here the first implicator. Pragmatic is a branch of linguistics that studies the variety of meaning in language. In pragmatic, there is something called implicator. Implicator can be represented as variety of intention behind the explicator or explicitness of an utterance. Implicators can also mean the various intentions contained behind speech based on the text of the speech. So implicators is something that is implicated in conversation, that is something that is allowed to be implicit in the actual use of language. Second, educational YouTube podcasts. Podcasts are information technology-based media that accommodate independent learning abilities, are technology-based, and can repeat material. Discussion related to educational problems to the use of podcasts as learning media are increasingly interesting to review, like PowerPoint presentation and class video. Podcasts can be used as digital-based learning media. The third, Pancasila student value. The implication obtained from in-video podcasts that discuss education is then associated with the values of Pancasila student. The value of Pancasila student are divided into six, namely five: global diversity, mutual cooperation, independence, creativity, and critical thinking. Through the application of the six dimensions of the Pancasila student profile, it is hoped that the Indonesian people will become individuals who are intelligent and have character and are able to face the challenge of 21st century, and of course is instill the values contained Pancasila as the state philosophy consistently, and you ultimately be able to realize a prosperous and dignified national life nation. One of the mandates of 1951 45 Constitution. The use of implicator in podcasts that discuss education is classified into each Pancasila student value that a conclusion line is drawn about the data from each indicator on its impact on the each of values of Pancasila student. Slide 3. Goal of the research. My research objectives include first, analyze the meaning of the indicator contained in YouTube podcasts that discuss education and classify indicator as conventional or non-conventional. Second, explain the implication, describe the implication for the six values of Pancasila student for education citizen and millennial student. Next method, this study used data analysis technique that are used, namely pragmalinguistic data analysis technique, the Morris model, namely collecting data, selecting data, simplifying, classifying, analyzing, and present it. By using the Morris model, the common presentation of data is to describe the intent of the implicator observed by the research person in the podcast, which discuss education using pragmatic aspect. The data analysis method used is as follows: data collection. Number one, the researchers collects data in the form of speech, except the content implicator on education podcast on YouTube. Two, the process of selecting data. After the data is collected, the researchers selected data to content implicator. Next, data reduction. Reduction data that has been selected in is then simplified and gain and removes unnecessary data. Or next, classifying data, grouping data according to the appropriate implicator. Next, presentation of data. Data that has been analyzed is then described according and linked to the implication for the values of Pancasila student. And last, drawing and conclusion. The data that has been presented will then draw conclusion from each of the implicator obtained and which have been linked to the values of Pancasila student. Result. The results of research we conduct found to result, namely, first, 75% conventional implicated data and 25% non-conventional implicated data. Example of data include conference that contain conventional and non-conventional conflict implication. Second, the relationship between each indicator found in the data and the six values of Pancasila student. Results 1. Example of conventional indicator data. Explicator Naswa Sirap. So, Mauti Ayunda's confusion has actually created a heat discussion on social media. Najwa Shihab's story was explicitly told to Mauti Ayunda because Mauti was different from the other young people in general who were confused by love. Mauti Ayunda is actually confused about where to continue her studies, at Stanford or at Harvard, two universities which in fact are well-known class universities whose entry points are not easy. Context presented by Najwa Shihab in her podcast on the Narasi YouTube channel to the podcast audience about Maudy Ayunda's turmoil. This anxiety led Maudy Ayunda confused about continuing her studies at Harvard University, Stanford University. Implicator: Maudy Ayunda has intelligence above the average young person in general, and Maudy Ayunda has the determination to continue to a higher level at university. It's not just anyone can do. Next, result two example. Part two, why you have to learn Indonesia when everyone can speak Indonesian? Dani, I am someone who like things that are poetic and wise. This speech explicitly illustrates that the speaker, Dani, someone who like everything that is poetic and wise. That's why the speaker like to learn Indonesian and chose the Indonesian language and literature education study program of his undergraduate studies. Context conveyed by the research person in podcast on the YouTube channel Cakap channel podcast who explained that it was Putri and Wise things that made the speaker Dani like studying Indonesian and chose the Indonesian language and literature education study program in his undergraduate studies. Indicator. Uh, First, Dani has a passion for wise and boutique things, and boutique and wise things made Dani decide to learn Indonesian and continue her undergraduate studies at the Indonesian Language and Literature Education study program. Result 2. Implication for Pancasila student value. First, having faith, fearing God Almighty and having noble character. Beriman bertakwa kepada Tuhan yang Maha Esa dan berakhlak mulia. In my opinion, general education and religious education must be balanced. In this case, is it is in line with the values of Pancasila students who believe in being devoted to God Almighty, having noble morals. In terms of utilizing general knowledge, it is also accompanied by religious teaching and beliefs and applying this understanding in daily life so that the acquisition and use of knowledge will be in accordance with the portion that has been measured in religious teaching according to the teaching of God Almighty. And second, global diversity, kebinekaan global. The example is at school, we understand the difference between friends if they have different beliefs and religion. This speech is in accordance with the values of Pancasila student, namely global diversity. In this case, the speech spoken by the speakers describe life in school environment which uphold tolerance and togetherness and respects difference between people, not mocking each other, not criticizing and ridicule each other. This should be emulated by the modern day millennial generation as it's now. Next, nilai sub work together, gotong royong. Online learning trains us to communicate and collaborate between friends. This piece is in accordance with this Pancasila student value, namely working together. In according with the statement, only online learning trains used to communicate and collaborate between friends. That's despite my any limitation, online learning actually trains independence and communication between friends. Communication is very important, especially when studying in or working in group. Communication between friends greatly determines the success of group work carried, as well as training students independent in solving assignment problem given by their teacher. Next, independent, mandiri. Online learning train us to find out for ourselves. This speech is in accordance with the Pancasila student value, namely independence, whereas in the speech is it state online learning train us to find out for ourselves. Implicitly, this statement is a testimony from students that during online learning, students are training to find out the material being taught independently. This will train students their mental and independence to develop, as well as sparking student curiosity in terms of exploring more than the material taught by the teacher. Next, five, critical reasoning. Uh, from the example indicator, Jerome Pauline, do values matter? Kita Safitri Devi, in my opinion, it's not important, right? Trends contain the values Pancasila student, namely critical reasoning. In this speech spoken by Gita Savitri Devi, if I think it's important, it's not important. Content critical thinking because the speaker believe that a value according to him can be important or not. The goal is not to offend other parties. In this case, according to the speaker, uttering and speech that has implicator that have various meaning. Because the utterance contain that value can be important and can also be unimportant. Academically, grades are important, but on the other hand, in non-academic environment, grades are not important. But in my opinion, values describes personal, intellectual, and attitude traits. Therefore, it is in accordance with the speech spoken by the speaker who states that value may or may not important. And the sixth, creative. Create. Najwa Shihab. In your opinion, what makes Stanford University interesting? Mukti Ayunda, there are friends of many who graduate there. Their stories about the experience they had made me interested, and I'm also interested in business and technology, and have inspiring lectures. And Stanford is also extraordinary school too. This discourse contains implications, each of which mean in accordance with the value of Pancasila student, namely critical and creative reasoning. Creative. Maudy Ayunda is a genius young girl who has big dreams and is creative. In this case, his interest in the business and work, his interest in the work of technology, and his desire to always continue his studies abroad. It was not an ordinary university that he was interested in, in university that was classified as a famous university in the world. This is what Indonesian millennial generation needs to emulate, so they always reason critically for the future. Listen critically when making decisions and the consequences of what they face, as well being creative in term talent interest. Then millennial generation should always understand and interest and talent that exists in each individual so that later they can be properly organized what to do and where to go after completing high school or SMA. And conclusion, in this research, the use of conventional implicator dominate compared to non-conventional or conventional implicator. Of the 60 data, and 20 data are conventional implicator, and 4 data are non-conventional implicator. Nearly 75% of the data samples used in this research were dominated by conventional implicator. Of the 60 samples of speech contain implicators, there are 3 speeches that are in accordance with this Pancasila student value of 5, devoting to God Almighty and having noble morals; 2 utterance in according with the values of global diversity; 1 speech according to the value of mutual cooperation; 3 utterance in according with the values independence; 5 utterance according to the values of critical reasoning, as well as to utterance in according with the values of creative Pancasila student. The most utterance we found in the Pancasila student critical reasoning resource, according to which 5 form this framework were formed. It is hoped that the analyzed career of can provide an understanding of Indonesian language subject and their learning, especially in terms of learning pragmatic, as well as provide teaching to education practitioners and the millennial generation to better implement and carry out the 6 Pancasila student value for the sustainability and improvement of the character and of the millennial generation in the future. So this is end of my presentation that I can convey relate to my research in general. Hope it is useful. I would like to express my gratitude. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.